ערב טוב, אחר צהריים טובים. Still these few people that are doing the late check-in. One or two on the way to Israel, one in Munich, and I don't know, everything will be fine by late this evening. As I told most of you when we talked just a week ago, for me it's a dream that came be a real story. And I hope that's the beginning of a long-term partnership that will lead the leadership of the reform movement. Rabbis and cantors spend more time in Tel Aviv.
Shalom everyone. Another Shalom day to Shabbat. I heard where someone on television, someone said that what is an Israeli? When someone tells you that there was a missile sent to kill you and your children, they ask where from. Because if it's Putin, you don't go downstairs at all. Only if it's Iraq. So, you'll notice the difference. People will ask where from. If they say Putin, it's but the first alarm that comes 15 minutes, like you have time to make coffee before the siren, is a scary one. I wonder who's the guy that chooses the scary sounds. And what I always am sorry is that I'm sure it's a guy. The same siren that we use for war here is the siren that goes on for Shabbat in Jerusalem. So couldn't they change it to some beautiful music? The people hear music all over the city instead of. But that's our life here, and it's nice to tell it to someone else and then be here. Who is interested in it? So my name is Ruth. I am a Tel Avivian, a proud one. I think Tel Aviv Judaism is a very interesting kind of Judaism that should be known more in the world. Usually missions that come used to work the UJA Federation in New York with the scholar in residence, and the missions always came to Jerusalem. And then they would come to Tel Aviv to do some shopping and go to the airport. And Tel Aviv is a
Stop in a restaurant, a good restaurant.
Restaurant shopping. And I'm so happy that Manuel is doing the seminar here because Tel Aviv offers another option of Judaism as culture and Judaism, the whole concept of being very Jewish, whether you are affiliated or not affiliated to synagogue, you're affiliated to Judaism and to Jewish culture. And so much I look for just for a minute in your program. I would be happy to add a lot of theater, and there's wonderful art galleries open now. There's a lot of action going on. The Jerusalem Festival is happening now, both in Jerusalem and here, and some good shopping places too. I hope you enjoy yourself when you go to the beach. Feeling that Tel Aviv, July, August, there's no option but taking some time off, wearing shorts and getting some vitamin D and trying to relax. Having said all that, I did want to share with you 3 thoughts of what they told me that we would like to speak about, what is different and what's new, what's going on. So I'll open with a few thoughts and I'll be very happy to have any kind of dialogue, any questions that you want to ask and you don't have an Israeli near you. It will stay between friends. I forget everything anyway. So you can trust me, and we don't have to be completely, on the polite side. So the first thing I feel that we went through and we are still trying to recover and trying to find ourselves together. The first, I think, it was trust. The basic trust between a citizen and a country. The basic trust that says you will go to the army, you will pay your taxes, Your children will go to the army, your father went to the army, your brothers, yourself, but your home is safe. Won't happen at home. When you come home, you go into your pajamas and trust you're safe. The fact that October 7th happened at home, Saturday morning, which is such a special place of Israeliness, it's very hard to recover. And when you saw on television that morning, the mother and children in pajamas talking to the guy on television, whispering, "Where's the army? Where's the army?" And that "where's the army" was in some ways similar to "where was God?" And in such moments, the basic concept of what I'm doing in my world, where do I live, who's with me in one Tzara, who is at my right hand all the time. For Israelis is that the soldiers are securing us, and that it can't happen in Sderot or in a kibbutz home like that. Everything that you saw happened. So the first thing that was wounded, of course, together with, I don't want to go into the details of pain and suffering and death, was trust. And I felt that it's like the breaking of the first tabernacle Luchot by Moses. And there's a time between the first breaking of the tablets and when God asked him to come up and write for himself the second ones. There's a time without tables, without people. And we are now in such a time that the second ones were not written in. And we know it's not that, people are not leaving Judaism, and it's not that we are running back to Egypt, although maybe some do, but there is a feeling that the basic ketubah between us and the country, the basic contract was broken. Not in any ill meaning. I think the people that are in the most pain are the soldiers and the army. The armies and some of even my students are already alufim, like heads of generals, and they have a very hard time to live with the fact that they gave all their life, keep us secure, and they failed. And so that kind of, I'm sure you've been here a few times already, but you'll find an Israel that has lost some of our trust. And that's very painful. I'm not sure, I'm not telling you things you've never heard. I think America is also searching for the basic trust of being an American citizen. Nothing that can happen here, democracy. You have some of it, but I think here it was so traumatic, and because of the scenes with children and so forth, and because of the hostages, it still did not come home. It's 667 days and nights. And I'm sure you watched what we watched yesterday, seeing a young man that looks like a Muslim is not something that we were ready to see. The hunger in Gaza from children and people, and families, and Muslim people, and then starvation of young men that cry to their mothers. That thing in Israel that a soldier is called child because the whole country is a Jewish mother. And although you trust them to secure you and to keep you safe, on the other hand, you look at him as a child. You want him home. So that was, I confessed that I decided to fast Tisha B'Av. I am drinking water because I wanted to feel this hunger that he was talking about. And one day he has lentils, second day he had nothing, third day he had half a pack of beans, and then he doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that was something I don't think that as Jews in the world and as Israeli Jews, we had a concept to think about, because the whole idea of Zionism was that this will be the safe haven. That there will be one place where we can sleep in our pajamas in safety. And I think so that is the basic breaking of trust, but that came with a whole loss of trust in what the government is doing, in democracy, in the courts. And so we are on the streets, and if you'll be here for more than a few days, I'm sure you'll also stand with us or with someone in the protests. And I felt when I walked into this room, that same good feeling when you come to a protest and everybody's nice. Or everybody, you know that they all share the wish for normal core democracy. Although there are half of Israelis that feel that it's a party they were not invited to. And in that sense, the protests are not doing the job that they meant to be showing our care, but they became party that someone was not invited to. Anyway, I'm going too deep, but the feeling of lack of trust is one thing that I think this year is different from previous visits before. The second thing that I want to talk about, and I think maybe it's the most important one, is the question of identity. It is our issue for, I think, all my life, my adult life, and that's my life project. That's what I do. I do it in my community, which is the non-affiliated community. But I think, and I think the Reform community in Israel is not in a such a challenging case as it is in the what we call mamlachti, in the general public. But the question of our identity, what are we? If we are Jews, like today with Tisha B'Av, B'Av has the bad luck to happen on summer holiday in school, and the institution that teaches us what Judaism is about when we are not synagogue goers is school. But there's no school, so nobody learned about Tisha B'Av. And we started celebrating together with the Bet Filah Israeli, a synagogue, Tel Aviv, a decade ago. And yesterday we had hundreds of people in the museum of the. And we sat on the floor and we read Echa, and then we talked about what's happening to us. The issue of Jewish identity in Israel is challenged in very strong way these days, both because Judaism has, the people that speak for Judaism, or many of the people that speak for Judaism, have walked up to the Temple Mount today and tried to make trouble, 3,000 some people. We know that you're not supposed to walk, to pray on the Har Bayit, and you know that it needs Spain to for it. They do it anyway, and there's a lot of a face of Judaism that is messianic, that is the zealots of the Second Temple, want to go on with the war. What Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to his nephew, Abba Sikara, if you go on like this, all of us will die of hunger. And Abba Sikara tells him, I can't control them anymore. They will kill me if I say anything. There's a feeling that the extremists, the messianic extremists, are ruling a lot of, you can see it on television if you have patience. I can't watch it for more than a few minutes. They go with on the army uniform with a badge that says Mashiach. They talk about Mashiach, not in the gentle, hopeful concept of that Mashiach is always coming, but it's something very concrete that has to do with killing a lot of people and taking over a whole land. And that is, yes, they wear it on their military uniforms, Technically, no.
Army doesn't want them to do that, but you see that a lot of this assumption.
We must face the fact that the army has changed a lot. And many of my dear Shauli was in Maglad, which is the elite unit, and thank God he was wounded before the war. It is a Jewish mother saying he was back before the war, so they didn't take him to Gaza. But many of our people, kids, don't go to the army as a career anymore. We used to, it was the pride and joy of the 60s and 70s to go to be a paratrooper. It's not anymore. And the majority of people that are believing in it and seeing the army as part of the third temple and the Messianic times are the extreme religious Zionists, and they are a lot of the army today. So they will not say anything to someone that writes Mashiach, which is a beautiful word. Depends what's your interpretation of it.
Yeah, he removed it by himself. So a soldier with this badge, he took it off. He said, "You are not allowed. It's not a military. It's something else. It's a political message." And he, the former chief of staff, said, "I don't allow him." And by himself took it off to make sure that every soldier in the army understand that they report to their commander, not to the Mashiach.
But many of them, it's true. There is, I can't talk about everything, but in the Israeli army today, there are two forces, and I'm afraid that the new one, the young one, coming out of the Mechinot, that were built for that. I went once to the last class of the last session of study with a Rav, his name in Shivat. Anyway, Berlin, yeah. And he told the young soldiers that going to the army is a mitzvah, which it is not just to inform us. And that because it's a mitzvah, you have to go to the army. And when you are in the army, you have to make sure that there are no women around you, that everything is holy and so on. So there's a whole ideology of army as a vessel of holiness. And that you can imagine by yourselves.
By the way, a lot of the generals, those who are running the battalion, they are
That's where they were
graduates,
educated.
Shiva and many others. So you see who are the people running today the war in the field. This is the group.
Now I have a lot of fondness to religious people, religious Zionism, but when the question of morality and what it is to be a Jewish soldier in the field, and we have like code that was worked on by philosophers of law and Moshe Agutal and Asaf Sher and so forth, and we teach the soldiers that when they come into the army, what is happening today in Gaza, I am afraid, is not always. That is not always the way that the generals are, or the
Because of behavior.
it's not always the code of behavior, and that is something that is breaking my heart and our heart, and we don't exactly know what to do, because you can't blame a young soldier, soldier movies that we saw, Second World War or Vietnam, you can't blame the private. He's a good guy, we know that. We are his mother. We know what a sweetheart he is when he comes home and he can't get himself a glass of water and you do his washing. But when they go there, it is a big challenge because their war is so long, because it's so scary and many people get killed all the time, and because there's an ideology in the army today that I think never was. My father once told me, my father, was a very not a big hero and not a big soldier, he was a scientist and he built the silos of wheat in Israel. But when he was a student in agriculture, they were taken in for the independence war. And so he fought in Gush Etzion, and he fought and he told me, Utkele, in a war, now comes a swear word that I will not use, that the worst guys float up. They have guns and they do what they want to do. I told me, even with the Palmach and the best units, I saw rape and I saw people taking things from houses. War is a terrible thing. So it's not that now suddenly we became vicious, but there is a big challenge there. And I think that is one of the reasons we want this war to end, to save the souls of all these people that will come back. You know, I know it from Philip Roth books, but what happened to the Vietnam soldiers coming back, and how do you go back to be a daddy and a son and to go to work after you've been so afraid, and so even if you hurt one. So the second thing I wanted to say is about our identity. Judaism is talked about by voices that are more and more extreme, and the normal Israeli secular person that is ambivalent about religious Judaism still because of the ambivalence about diaspora and the way we were brought up to be the new Jew, the sun tent. I don't remember what was the actor in the film of the ship here. Paul Newman suddenly from this, Galician Yiddish family of mine. My mother was Zichronah Lebracha, she was born in Isha B'Av. She was redhead, her skin was very fair with freckles, and she was left-handed in Germany, born in 23. It was a very bad combination. Wow. And she came to this country in the heat in August, and she can't go out with the sun. And we are supposed to be this new Jew, Bar Kochba, riding on their lion. That didn't work out so well, but I'm working in Jewish education and trying to explain to myself and to my people that we are Jews, and the fact that we are Jews is not going to make us go back to the shtetl. But that process is taking time. Education is the only thing to do, but it is a very long process. While they see those voices talking about Judaism, they want to run away. And now yesterday in Tisha B'Av, there was a whole movement of going and sitting in coffee places to support the coffee places because the government is closing them. Now, it's not for me a serious way to show your Jewish identity going to support all the coffee places. But not everybody has the education or the ability to read a and understand and talk about it. Still, that's a long story. It's our work together with Manuel and I for many years, and it is even a bigger challenge when there's no synagogue to educating. So today I spoke at 6 in the morning in one radio, 9 in a different radio, 11 in the Haifa radio, and at 4 on television, and they call us as the holiday Jews to talk about Judaism a little bit, but then disappear again until the next holiday, because the long story, you know better than me as rabbis. The third thing I want to open, and then I really want to talk a little bit, is responsibility. Question of responsibility for this amazing concept of a homeland for the Jews in the state, in the country, or in the state of Israel, is not today owned by all communities. It's easy to talk about the ultra-Orthodox community. It doesn't feel responsible for the project. Some of them did not want to join the project from the beginning. They say, you want a country? Work for it. We never asked for a country. That's a small portion that is not taking money from. But a bigger portion of the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel is funded. Their schools funded by the country, and they educate children to say that the country is not Jewish and no good. And when they are forced to teach some whole curriculum, they teach 1 hour a week, either Hebrew or English, and 1 hour a week, either math or science. And they say, now you have to fund us because we teach you. Now they are raising children that will not be able to be working and earning their living. And then again, the Trajtenberg. So, but that's easy to say about them, and they deserve the talk about them, and we should not be funding schools that educate again the country. But responsibility, even in the best friends of mine, to say, even if it's not army today, and my father always told us, serve exactly the days you have to serve. Army is not a place to excel in. Go to the university, become doctors, become whatever you educated were. But many of our children, and I think that goes for my dearest friends in New York or Boston or wherever, they do not see themselves responsible for this state, especially. They are citizens of the world. They are in high tech. Huh?
Any other state as well.
Any other state as well. They are citizens of the world, and we see something very sad recently. And I luckily, happily, Baruch Hashem, became a grandmother. People are leaving. And when your children are living with the grandchildren, it's heartbreaking. Baruch Hashem, not mine. But my best friend from school has apart from her two beautiful grandchildren that are going to Portugal. And who knows when they'll come back. And that is something that never happened on such a scale. Maybe after Yom Kippur, I was too young to see. And again, another angle of it is that, I served in politics with Nachman. He was a serious politician. I came only for 3 years, like army. But I do believe that good people
It was an excellent speech, the first speech in the Knesset. It's always the one that we try our best, and that will be remembered. That speech will be remembered for
He
generations.
was, although we were not from the same party, he was
We're not so far from each
my supporter there. But the fact that people hate politics, will never dream of going to politics. If you're responsible for something, you have to run it. You have to do it in the school, teacher, parents, whatever. You have to do it in the city hall, and you have to do it in the country. And the fact that the good people don't want to go into politics, but the bad people do, that again, the whole question of how do we, and it is of course connected to trust. If you feel it's your project, you're willing not even to do all your life in politics, but to give 3 years, to do your best, to like in the Greek democracy, to rotate. So we are very challenged in this three fields and some more. I felt this Tisha B'Av that what was always something a little artificial to talk about structure. Jerusalem is happy. There's a lot of, you see the buildings in Tel Aviv. You don't look for 2 minutes. There's another sky. Like, when do they build them at night? But this year.
But at the same time, those was hidden by the Iranians who are still disastrous. So even in the north or in the area of Gaza, to see the Tula or the government can't handle. Whatever needs to be handled by the government is still broken.
The government could not do what they're supposed to do. But what I want to say is that this year, talking about destruction of the first, second temple, is not just about what happened, what, that like when your parents tell you stories and you're like, don't stop. And you're like, suddenly you understand it can happen. It simply can happen. And we might lose the opportunity to live as free people. I come from my mom from Germany, my father from Bulgaria. They lived the experience of being this one child in school and my father in work camps. It didn't end well in Germany. The fact that everyone wants a German passport now, I'm like, didn't you see the movie? It's like, didn't you notice that we tried? Very talented people. It didn't work out well. And we need, although I spent many very good years in America, I feel at home when I come to America, but we need a homeland too. And especially for people that want to live here in Hebrew, it's not to be taken for granted. And the question of Eicha, that is usually the question of Eicha is but that, like, why did God do it to us? And the answer, because we were bad and we must return to Him. In my way of thinking is, Eicha, how did we bring ourselves to this? Eicha. It is fresh and relevant today. And when you don't think that it's a punishment, and I don't think it's a punishment, it's a wake-up call. We have to, it's a worthwhile, great country. I love living here. It's the highest quality of life as a Jew. And I want to, grab you in the afternoons and evenings and show you theaters and shows and stuff. And so much is going on here. So much poetry, so much music, so much culture and creativity. And the friends that left and live in Berlin, it's not the same, So I want to stop and still to talk to you a little bit before I'm giving you my mark. Do you have any thoughts? Something you want to give more about?
Basic question. If there's a spike up in the spread of the army, the zealots and normal people, what's going to happen with the 50,000 Haredim that are being called off? What's going to do to them?
Very, very scary. The Haredim, I don't see them coming into the army so quickly, but the Haredim are educated, very little subtleties. They are very black and white. And to give someone like that weapon and send him to someone, they say, children, that a non-Jew doesn't have a soul. I mean, how could it be that people speak like that? But if someone is an idiot, he's an idiot. When someone is an idiot with a gun, with a machine gun, it's very scary. On the other hand,
brainwashed idiot. That's
and I really am not, again, I think there's a lot of beauty in orthodoxy in certain ways, but the education that they give, the brainwash kind of education, is very dangerous in the army. I do think that they can give service in a million ways. In the kindergartens where there's 40 kids together, in the old age homes, in cleaning, in building, all the things that Far East people are doing today. We need their heads. We need their responsibility in partnership. I don't think that army is the first. I do want them to serve, but I'm not sure that I would like to be there when even 10,000 of them.
Think about
Not because they are bad.
how they will treat women serving today.
Can
Can they get an order from a woman that who's their provider?
There needs a lot
Rabbi
of
or
education. And Manuel and I are working in the Manuel Institute, and there's a lot of work being done there by modern ultra-Orthodox people that are trying to educate new yeshivot that will go to the army with wonderful young people, and but it's a every change will take time. Yes, please. Oh, sorry. You see,
Well, it's very obvious, but you see a connection between the relatively new requirement of our agents to serve in the IDF and all the zealotry that they bring.
It's interesting. It's not the zealots that call them in, but it's a very tragic.
So many.
It will not be. It is a threat, and again, our children don't want to be soldiers. You know, it's a challenge. I don't know how to answer. They are wonderful. They are very wonderful people in the army still. But I'm honest with you. English is so hard that I don't bother to be to around the bush. The generation of the great commanders is going out, and the generation of people that were educated on Jewish superiority and stuff are going in, and I'm worried. Please.
I had a very different experience at Tisha B'Av from like just it being like people trying to go out to the cafes. I was in Jerusalem last night, and in the square where they always do the hospitality every week, they did this combination rally / baseball game. It was so powerful. They had 5 chapters, each one read by someone with another connection to a hostage family or someone who was killed. The last reading was Honor Shapira's father, who got up there with a machine gun strapped. I was like, gosh, only in Israel that like you just see a man with a huge machine gun on his back just reading Eicha, and no one thinks about that. And then he talked about his son and also just what it means to kind of renew our days. And I thought to myself, like, this is what Israel was built for, that you could take Tisha B'Av, make it so relevant for this moment. Like, and I feel like what I remember, one of the things that I love that you did, Ruth, when you were in the Knesset, I remember the brilliant thing that you suggested around Shmita, like the idea that we could actually make this old tradition relevant in this country. Pardon me, but I think of it as like the reforming of, reforming Judaism. It's not a zealous Judaism, it's the Judaism that we dream that Israel could create. So I'm just wondering, because I'd love to hear, like, when you're in the forefront of this, well, where is that happening? And are there movements for that? Or have secular Jews, do you feel like since 15 years ago when you were doing this, do you think Israelis have more and more turned away from Judaism? Or do you think they're trying to renew and reform Judaism? Are there seeds of this we're seeing more?
First of all, it's a compliment because it's 30 years.
There's no way.
I look so young.
Ah.
It's 30 years now. Alma is 29 years old, and Elul was founded 7 years before.
I meant when you were in Knesset.
The Knesset is 10 years ago. I told you in the opening last night we did a big ceremony at Anu, and we read next to the Keter Shosha, like there is this beautiful work happening, but with modern Orthodoxy or progressive Judaism. In Jerusalem, you'll see it much more around Arnona, Moshe Germanit, not all over Jerusalem. You'll see more of the, Orthodox kind. In Tel Aviv, I don't know if I would not have spent a year in Australia and then a few years in America, that I would know how to do it. To use creativity on your Judaism and to know that as a woman, I'm allowed to even think about it and go downstairs, was new to me. I think I walked into BJ when I was 20. What is this? And it will take time. There is now a movement of Israeli Judaism, we call ourselves, and the reform movement is part of it, but there's a lot of secular movements within it, Vida and Mohanim, and Alma of Moshe and so forth. And we're going to have 3 big spots in the public space and have a lot of activities there. We are doing slichot out in the street on Rothschild Boulevard. we do a lot of work with the families of hostages. A lot of us are working with them, like my psychoanalytic friends are just working with people coming back, families that are broken and hostages that came back and children that were left without their parents. The way that you can do it in a synagogue in New York, when you work with the people that want to come, and they know what it's about. They've come a few times and they know the game, they have the language. Here, it's like you would go to Times Square and say, let's do Tisha B'Av. Now, some people would say, Sababa, let's do it. Some people will not even know. I work in Times Square. Now, I work in a Times Square where the generations before me did the operation of taking out the Jewish thing in the computer, like the chip. And to build the chip, Judaism is not something that it has to be a little worn out. It has to have a little, like, it's not good if it's not.
It has to be loved.
It has to be.
It's even before lungs. It is come. I think most of, as Ruth says, the generation of her parents, my parents, they choose not to choose it.
Even when they wanted to, my mom came with a very strong German accent. That was not accepted here. You were not supposed to be. You're supposed to be born here, suntanned, and jumping on the mountains.
And be Israeli and not Jewish. Be Israeli and not Jewish.
Be Israeli and not Jewish.
Most-
Don't speak Yiddish.
Yeah, one of those who are living here in Tel Aviv, it's a different story. It's a different story. They still didn't discover that Israelis means Jewish. You can be, and we're still there. We're still in that fight. But this fight was somehow the last 4 years changed. And I feel it. And I can tell you,
Many more people come.
many people are coming from one side, many people want to have it, but they don't have the synagogues, they don't have the, we don't have the infrastructures that you have. The synagogues, the buildings that, we don't have it. And the third issue is not forget the noise that we have here from the other side. We discovered the last year and a half that more and more kids, that when the parents registered them for bar mitzvah at Ben Daniel, egalitarian bar mitzvah, but they come and says, well, this is not Judaism.
It's not authentic.
It's not authentic. It's something new. Because we were we were the coolest thing in the area. Now, I had a guy that came to me with his parents that want to have a bar mitzvah in the egalitarian synagogue, and he saw the gay flag of Ben Daniel. You have to understand that Israel is not Israel of 4 or 5 years ago. What happened here, the movement, the Bibism movement, changed the spirit and the concept of who you are to many Israelis. And I'm not talking about Ofakim or Netivot or we're talking about North Tel Aviv, north of Tel Aviv.
I'm not sure if it's the Bibism. I see it on my son. He loves Judaism just like I used to when I was 16. I was never accepted because I'm a woman, so I stayed out. I'm sure that if I was in America or was a man, I would come into one of the movements, but maybe. But I think it's out of fear. He lost a lot of friends. Some others lost their eyes, their hands, and the guilt. He was not there. And the fear, they caught him, he's now learning in university in agriculture, like my father, which makes me very happy. And the ultra-Orthodox got him there. They pay a lot of money to the students. He started studying because he loves studying, there's no other option. I cannot pay students 5,000 shekel each month.
My gosh, I come on in college.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And he's
$400 to learn about Judaism.
And my beloved, the top of my eye, Shauli, is now kind of going to, and I think it's out of the shock and the fear and the need for identity. But again, you can't do it quickly. So anyway, you are coming to, I'm sure you'll see everything for yourself and you understand
I just
what you see.
that a bit because we are going through the same thing with my sister, who I think is a bit in the similar age, and that's pre-war even, just the amount of budget and investment in both Orthodox movement recruiting secular students is phenomenal and something to note, I think.
So, yeah.
Try to understand, for example, the principle of Chabad. Many Israelis, when they left the army, they will travel around the world. Chabad houses are waiting. By the way, the state of Israel funded
Houses,
one or two, yeah, the beginning.
yes.
But there are 600 million shekels that the Israeli government pays to Chabad from the different directions. You understand that the numbers,
How much?
and they are there around the world, And where we are as a world movement,
They get money from the government.
That's it, my time.
different.
You have to know the whole thing.
You spoke about responsibility, and I just want to dig into that a little bit because, you know, American Jews or diaspora Jews always had symbiotic relationship with Israel. We find ourselves in unprecedented waters. Just for example, we were at a concert last weekend, Englewood. Englewood is primarily old. We were young. We are not young. In the group of people who were there, we were among the youngest, and maybe it's 50% Jewish. And it was a Grand Nash concert, and he made some comment about Gaza being genocide, and there were big cheers in this population of stalwart older Jews. And so, like,
We're talking about Florida.
no, the Berkshires, you know. Anyway, this is one of many instances where, you know, we are finding ourselves with our friends. And it's so painful. And I don't know, you know, the sense of responsibility. Listen, our kids are not fighting. Or I understand we are not the primary, but we are affected.
I know, and also that I have a feeling that I'm losing you. I mean, some of my best friends, or I see them on Facebook saying, Israelis are Nazis, and I'm like, David, it's me. So I wrote on my Facebook page, I stand for Israel, not for its government. It's very hard to show the difference, but there's so many Israelis. I mean, as Jews, we were educated to always be, I mean, if there's someone angry, we feed them. And we don't care who they are. To see pictures of hungry children and, of course, a very sophisticated campaign because they know where to push. And suddenly it is on our account of Israel. I know that you're suffering, and I'm really, that's why I'm saying that this Tisha B'Av, I'm really worried because we are in a situation and a position that we've never been. I do still hope, I mean, that there could be elections, there could be a different government, and this is still fixable. I'm not sure that I'm right, but I just want you all to know that there are people here that feel exactly like you. That I'm sure that you, like me, feel sorry for anyone who is in pain or hospital was killed or is angry. It's not the intention of any soldier. There are politicians that, one of my students at Manuel, she's a right-wing woman, very clever and serious, and she said something, and it kind of stayed with me and surprised me. She said, when Egypt formed Gaza, it was built to be refugee camp. Now, they're not allowed to work in Lebanon or in Jordan or in Egypt. So they stay refugees. And it was built to humiliate Israel. And it's kept for 80 years. I mean, my parents were refugees. So you are a refugee, we pay a high price, you don't know about our grandparents, but then your children start living. The fact that they held a whole size of a state in a position where people cannot work and don't say, I live here now, or I moved to Jordan, I live there. They're not welcome anywhere. To stay there as a demonstration, a living, like an art איך אומרים, שעושים
Installation.
עצה, like an living installation of a refugee camp. And she says, and it will believe, who will take it? Will Egypt take it? Will Jordan take it? Or will they build a state for themselves? Because it's not that billions of dollars didn't come in. And I, of course, think, even if she's right, let's go home first and let them deal with it. But if there was a thought that I didn't think before, that it is kept as a refugee camp, and the suffering of the people is part of the neshek, of the weapon. The suffering of their own people is part of their weapon. It's an amazing thought that someone is using children's suffering in order to fight. But again, even if they do it, it's not my business to judge, but it's not an easy neighborhood. When in Tanglewood, the musician is saying Gaza, you know, it's not similar to killing Pocahontas.
It's a new chapter in Israeli diaspora relationship, and we'll have a lot of time to talk. What we are doing here, how it impacts you in the diaspora, and sometimes vice versa. It's something that we will have to learn, and it will stay with us for many years to come. It's not going to.
What I just will say before I go, because I think I spent my time, I want to say that on the right side of politics, they are very much standing together. And on the center and left, every two people are exactly, they're not exactly my color is a little more. And that is not a way to win. We need to stand together. All the Jews in the world that are democratic and humanistic and liberal and pluralistic, with all the Jews in Israel that are liberal and pluralistic, and leave the arguing our denomination exactly or not, and save the Jewish state. Please,
We're talking a lot about the redefinitions of terms that we've come to believe mean something, and all of a sudden people are describing them as. You may not have an answer to this, but I've been just struggling. What do you think David Grossman meant by saying that Israel's committed genocide? Is there a fundamental redefinition of the notion of genocide? Is that what going on? It's almost impossible to take that statement seriously from someone like David Grossman and other intellectuals who have also come out just in the last week saying we now believe Israel's committed genocide. Either they're lying, either they're being purposefully misleading, either they're trying to mount a campaign against Bibi and they're really trying to topple the government. Give me.
I'll tell you how I think about it.
Yeah.
I used to study a lot with David Grossman. He was part of Elul and still studies on this Buddha. First of all, I want to say he lost a son. And when someone loses a son, that's dead. I don't judge them before. I'll say simply, I don't think there's genocide. I think there are war crimes. I think we passed there was a beautiful lecture by Moshe Albertal that if you can, I would like you to hear. But because he did a lot of work in the army, going for years to battalions and speaking to soldiers. I don't think there's genocide, and I don't think the army tells anyone to kill. But I think there are war crimes. I think when there's a war that goes on so long, and people are afraid and tired, and some people are just that happened to me, and they also did. So I don't think there's organized. When you say genocide, you mean organized trying to get rid of the whole. I don't see that happening, even with the people that are, there is a religious language that I never heard before, and it's scary. It puts God into the whole worship. It says that we have to use world language to contribute that. David Postman, I just think that he's very talented, sweet person in such pain, and seeing his dreamland going pfeifen, as we say in song, that I wouldn't judge him, but not take him as fact. You can check facts. I mean, not that we know what the truth is anymore, but it is possible, and you have Nachman here that knows his way around the information. I don't.
You will hear many opinions, but that's what I said. The timing of such seminar is really, unfortunately, the best.
Incredible.
The best. I mean, it's just looking into the Israeli society. You will hear Professor Trajtenberg in a minute, and you get another perspective as well. I mean, we are very much engaged in it, and we are very happy to share it with you. Okay, even if you don't want to, we're going to share it with you, so it will make our life a little
We
bit
feel
easier.
less lonely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
I've been really wrestling this. Said something a minute ago that was important. You went past it quickly. The rabbis and occasions. We take text seriously. Care about it. And it's a struggle because we know that both religious Zionists and the Charedim are taking the texts that we love and reading them in ways that we can't even understand and enacting them. Right? And that this is what happens in Israel, uniquely in the world, where our texts are actually put into action. We preach it, but no one listens to it. But I just want to say, because I think this is what you were saying, that we need to
reclaim them.
We need to reclaim it. We need to put God language in as well, but with the way that we understand it. And we need to bring that, because what has happened now is the other thing that I'm sure we're all going to be talking about is our lost generation, our kids, right? Because we've taught them so well about what we're passionate about in Judaism that they've
They
turned their
look
back
at it
on
and they
Israel.
say that's not Judaism.
They look at Israel and they say that's not Judaism.
I think the work of reclaiming is what I try to do all the time. If you see the demonstrations 2 years ago, people in the left would not hold flags, even in America. I lived in Livingston, New Jersey. The houses with the big flags were not our friends. And the demonstration decided to reclaim the flag. And that was a very important thing to say. The flag is not yours. The flag is a flag. The state is not yours. I have a student this year that wrote the lyrics, the words of the Tekes HaMasuot. You know, Masuot, when they light the lights and they give
Ceremony that starts your Matzman.
Yom Ha'atzmaut,
Or inaugurates the main ceremony.
it's the holy ceremony of secularity. And he was invited to write it, and he said, I don't want to write it. It belongs to, to that government and the minister that is running it is not our friend. And I told him, it doesn't belong to her. It belongs to the state, to the Jewish people. If you write it, it will sound like you. You'll put your words in it. You'll put peace into it. You'll put the mothers into it. And he did. And the ceremony of Masuot this year was in their hands, but was with our words. So reclaiming is the art of what we know how to do. We need to stick together and to fight for reclaiming. To reclaim the word Mashiach and to reclaim Israel and to say to our children, this is not what state of Israel is. We have another option, and we maybe need your responsibility to put your year in or do something for. We can still save it, because I see it in my heart. My heart goes for my best friends when the children march in Palestine marches and don't have the patience to see the details that you know so much. And so it's David Grossman, it's great. So I'm sorry I don't have better.
Thank you, Ruth. And
So hello to you all, I'm welcome to Israel. When the Rabbi Meir asked me to participate in this event, of course, I couldn't refuse. I'm a very proud member of the Vietnamese congregation. I've been there for 30 years or so, but we have 3 daughters, each of them, if the admits were there. Again, the Torah and all that. So happy to tell you, or not happy to tell you, they were the only girls in their classes that did the bat mitzvah at all. Okay, because in Israel most girls don't do it. And they were very proud to do it, but to be the only ones in the school that did them. And Ruth talked about the youngsters living in Israel. This was the situation, but if I may, and I'm very happy to report that my older daughter that did the bat mitzvah Bechaniel just came back from 5 years in Boston. She was doing a postdoc at MIT, and she came back and she's joining the Tel Aviv University. One to 3 things. She had offers in the States, very good offers. Her husband just finished a PhD at Harvard, and they didn't even consider the offers and came straight back with 3 children. So there is also that. So we should be aware of the reality situation. Is not as big as it is. And that would be the motive of what I want to talk. But please feel free to interrupt, ask, comment and so forth. I don't want this to be a lecture, but rather a conversation. We all need conversation, particularly among friends, like-minded Jews that find themselves, whether in Israel or abroad, in a state that goes from frustration to despair to whatever. Okay, but even that, we share that. If we have that feeling of what the hell is going on, okay, and how is that affecting me and my surroundings? Beyond that, the reality is much more complex, nuanced, and far from despair. Far from. And this is not the topic I was asked to talk about, but no way genocide. And I can explain, okay, simply why not. Okay, so no way Israel is about to lose its character as the Jewish and democratic state. No way. I'm saying that as somebody in the trenches, okay, not as a detached observer of reality. So I want you to know that at start, and then we get into it. Of course, there's a very dark side, okay, and we are living through it. But that shouldn't prevent us from seeing, okay, the wider reality of it. Okay, so let me start. What is happening now is the result not just of October 2nd, but it's kind of the end point, or the almost end point, of a process, a very disturbing process that started almost 7 years ago. Why? There is a date for the process that brought us here, and that's December 2018. What happened in December 2018? Nothing that you remember. What happened is that same Prime Minister we have now dissolved the Knesset and called for elections. Sorry? Early elections. Always
early.
Yeah, it's always. So that started a process of political instability that the kind of the obvious manifestation of it was 5 election rounds in 4 years, with the end result that is to this day inconclusive, and I will explain that. Okay, so that was kind of the first kind of hit to the system. 5 election rounds, 4 years. That's incredibly polarizing, destabilizing in every sense, and we will develop that. Into that process, we had COVID. Now, the good news is that COVID was not caused by a Zionist germ.
You didn't discover.
Hasn't been proved. Okay. So that's a good news. And it affected everybody. But when that came on top of that political instability, okay, that's magnified. Because then everything becomes politically tainted, including the way it deals with COVID. Okay. So we were kind of relieving, kind of getting out of that. And then the new government was formed in the last round of elections. That was November 2022, the last round of elections. In December, a new government was formed. And that government, to this day, is a complete anomaly in terms of what the Israeli politics always were. Why do I say that? It's not because of my political ideas or stuff. Always, in every single government since the beginning, the prime minister sat in the middle, literally. But when you see how the government sits, okay, so there is a long table, rectangular table. The prime minister doesn't sit there; sits in the middle, okay, at the center of the table. There are people to his right, ministers, and his left. Always there was something balancing, a balancing act in governments in Israel. Coalition governments, of course, they were more tilted to one direction or the other. Always. Okay? Clearly, from Begin, with Shamir, and so forth, always. But there was always a balancing function there in government. Not this time. To the point that that's incredibly paradoxical. Not now, okay, because now, forget, we are at the extreme of the extreme. But Netanyahu, when he formed the government, he was at the left of his own government. I mean, really, I mean, kind of at the moderate. He was the moderate, okay, in the government. They were, how would this government was called? By themselves. Yamin al-Maleh Maleh. That's the expression, meaning right wing to the extreme, al-Maleh. That was their own definition. Okay, so this is a complete anomaly. We never had that. Okay, and I know for a fact that Netanyahu would have preferred not to have that, because that puts him in a very uncomfortable situation and dangerous situation. And now he's paying the price for that. Okay, for that anomalous situation. So that was kind of December 2022. And then January, okay, his government, his justice minister unleashes the so-called judicial reform. In Israel, even cannot agree on how to call it. Because, one way of calling it the judicial reform, we call it the coup. It's a regime coup. I mean, it's kind of overturning, an attempt to overturn the regime. Okay, so even on that, we can contact it. So that's January 2023. And it comes on top of everything else. Okay? And in no time, we see an explosion in Israel of opposition, okay, demonstrations, mass demonstrations. And to go fast forward, I don't know of any other country that has had mass demonstrations for 2.5 years, with an exception of 3 months from the October 7th until January of 24. 2.5 years of uninterrupted, except for that, mass demonstrations. The character has changed, you know, the topics have changed, okay? But this is what's happening, okay? And then, okay, we have these 9 months, almost 10 months of demonstrations and incredibly inaugural, you know, eternal fight. And then October 7th. And October 7th, I won't go into it, you know everything about it. There's always more to know about it. And the war, and it's not one war. It's the war in Gaza, then the war is Gaza. Essentially the influence of that on Syria, then we also do what we do in Syria, okay? Then the war with Iran, and going back to us. So it's a series, it's not one war with one enemy. Sorry, you're right.
This is just enough.
You're right.
No,
You're right, you're right, absolutely. I'm sorry, I forgot Yemen, okay? Exactly, okay? The enemy that we have no idea who had is, okay? Terror. So it's 6, 7 wars that they're fighting. So sequentially, part of them sequentially, part not, okay, and so forth. In Israel, as you probably know, the military doctrine, the security doctrine that was essentially formulated by Ben-Gurion in the early 1950s, said very clearly, and that was kind of the creative, that Israel cannot fight long wars, can only fight very short wars. And the reason is that our army is made of reservists. So most of the bulk of the army, the bulk and the numbers is reservists. We have a standing army, right? But it's relatively small compared to the needs of the security needs. And so we have built this amazing model. But it's a model in many countries that, by the way, I've been to Germany now, they are consulting that they are rebuilding their army. Okay? They're more serious than any other European country. They see the Russians in front of them. And they want to copy the model, the Israeli model, because we realized that anyway. And we found ourselves in a war that is lasting for almost 3 years. Okay, this is completely off the charts, but it's so extreme. I cannot really start to express the extent of that. If you're going to Miluim, going to reserve duty in Israel, okay, for officers, it was always wrong to go for 30 days a year, 40 days a year. Okay, that's it. And if there is the longest war we remember in terms of tactics for the whole army was the Yom Kippur War. How long was the Yom Kippur War? The war itself, it was a 4 months, 19 days. 19 days, and it was eternal. Okay, and now we are talking about almost 2 years of Miluim that are, they're serving 300 days, 400 days. And these are, people with children, with 3 children, a job, and so forth and so on. 400 days fighting. I mean, so it's so extreme what's happening right now. So essentially, think of this period of time, okay, in December it will be 7 years. Okay, with political instability, 5 elections in 4 years, from COVID, the new government, with the judicial reform, and then the series of wars, okay, that are being this, which are again, in terms of Israel, this is completely off the charts. Everything is off the charts. Okay, the political, 5 elections for a year is off the chart. The government is off the charts, not because of their ideas. That's the other fact. I'm saying because of the structure of the government. Okay, and the war and so on. So it's very important to understand that, because the extreme of, I mean, the density of events of it's really important. Now, every society, okay, operates in several realms. Okay, so you cannot talk about the Israeli economy or Israeli society in isolation. Okay, so there is the society, there is the economy, there is the military, there is the geopolitical and diplomatic, okay, and there is the internal politics. These are the 5 realms. And the relative importance, think of them as kind of wheels, okay, that are interconnected, okay? And some of them have more power than the others. In the situation we're living now, the 2 wheels that are really moving it is, on the one hand, the military security wheel, okay? And the other one is the internal politics. So these 2 are essentially driving the others. And so that picture is important in people. So I will talk briefly about each of these realms, okay? And then see what does it do. In terms of the military situation, and it will be very, we are all under the terrible, horrendous impression of pictures, both of starvation in Gaza and of our hostages starved. And this is something which is very hard to take. Any human being confronted with that. But try for the moment to detach yourself from that. We need also cool head to look at the overall situation. From a strictly military point of view, strictly military, okay, no security wise, okay, the situation we have arrived at after these almost 3 years is, from the point of view of security, the best situation of Israel finds itself in. Very surprising. Very surprising. What will we do? You measure security by the extent to which you are exposed or not to threats that are existential. Okay, and now again, I would say, detach yourself from what we overwhelmingly feel about what happened. I mean, the end result, if I isolate that, why do I say that? Well, let's look at it. Hamas is gone as a military force. Okay, remains there as a factor, but as a military force. Now we only now understand the extent to which they were a threat. It's really unbelievable, and this is one of these, kind of, for Israel is, we have the best intelligence, at 200, okay? We know where the commander-in-chief of Iran goes to sleep at what time, and we can take him out. But we didn't realize, or we didn't absorb, okay, or internalize the extent of the threat was posing to us. And to this day, I did some work, I was, for 3 years, I was head of the INSS, which is the Institute for National Security Studies. And, we studied this, which is research on that, we had a sort of an idea of the extent of the tunnels, for example. Okay? No, we were wrong. Our information was the information that the Israeli intelligence had. to this day. I mean, that
Yesterday, the discussion.
yes, we discovered another one. I mean, it's really beyond belief. It's something unprecedented in warfare. I mean, it's something that, I've been reading some experts in the US writing about this. There's nothing that comes close in history, of having developed this infrastructure underground, and the combination of the missiles and the commando that they developed, because it's bold. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, so there was a little bit of conversation, so I've been kind of
Please.
holding this. When you were talking about all the wars they're fighting, Ruth says, well, the one that I feel like you left out, and I understand it's in a different category, is sort of a public relations.
Oh, yeah, we get to that.
Okay, and so I just feel like when we talk about
Yes,
that
yes.
they're in the best position possible, security wise, I get it in one realm, and yet the fact that like we have never had lower support for
I
Israel
get that.
around the world, including in America, is a massive security threat, I think.
I will get to that.
I wanted to talk about the territories.
No, yeah.
No, I know, it's another war.
It's another one, but yes, absolutely. I mean, so I mentioned that there are 5 realms. One of them is the geopolitical diplomatic one. And this is a tremendous failure, of a colossal failure, but it's a result. Why? The reason I'm not emphasizing this, because it's a product of, it's a result of politics, strategy, and so forth. I mean, it's not something in itself. It reflects a deeper reality. But in any case, so Hamas is gone as a military force. Hezbollah hasn't disappeared, but the situation in Lebanon has changed dramatically. The president there, is our guy. I mean, America is with him, France is with him. He's trying to disarm Hezbollah. We have freedom of action there. The threat that Hezbollah poses to Israel, Israel would have never attacked Iran the way we did it. Had the Hezbollah threat been that it was 150,000 missiles came at Israel. So this is dramatic. Syria was always in history. The beginning wasn't Egypt, was Syria. Syria with really bad guys. And so vanished. Something good may happen there, and so forth. Iran is still there. Iran has, maybe given a blow, but they try to recover. The Houthis are a pain, where, and we don't know how to deal with that, but they're very far. So from that point of view, the situation is much better. Because it's much better, it opens incredible opportunities for a breakthrough in the region. With Saudi Arabia, they're waiting for that to happen. The last, this past Tuesday, the resolution that the declaration that the Arab League issued, 22 countries of the Arab League issued a statement that is binding, not less than that, saying that Hamas should disarm and relinquish power. The Arab League said, not I, not nobody else, not Trump. The Arab League, something that it's like, a fantasy. It's like science fiction. And the reason they are doing that is because they are scared shitless of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is Hamas, but they are again threatening Egypt. And all the countries in the Gulf are incredibly scared of it. And so, that's what they want. And they want we can have not just the Abraham Accords, fine with those that we had relations in them, but really breakthrough. So there is a tremendous opportunity that was brought about by military success, that we pay a very dear price for it. And yet we find ourselves squandering these opportunities and being, at the bottom of the pit in terms of world public opinion, and so that's kind of, the contrast that we have. In terms of the political, so that's kind of, those wins. In terms of the internal political situation, as I said before, just to give you a sense of what would become, I said 5 rounds of elections, okay? I counted because, every election brought new members of the Knesset, okay? We had in 5 years, 150 new members of the Knesset. Well, I want to remember that we have 120 members, okay, but so, and counting, because they keep changing, okay? Now, I was a member of the Knesset, and of course, I was a member of the Knesset. They took me out to understand who they was, how it's functioning. I don't say no more, right? I mean, how if the working democracy cannot continue. But I will give you one more piece of data that is interesting to have in terms of fun. In 6 years, we have 3 prime ministers, 4 ministers of defense, 5 ministers of finance, and 6 foreign ministers. So next time you have a Seder Pesach,
Keep counting.
okay? So when you have a Seder Pesach, אחד מי יודע, you got 3 prime ministers, 4 this, 5 that, okay.
You know the ascending feature of the foreign minister to every embassy, my wife, before she got the new one, they already replaced it. It was twice. Before they got the new picture of the new minister,
Right.
it was already.
Right. So, you cannot have policy, you cannot have strategy, you can have nothing. When, I mean, it's a joke, not some joke, it's the reality we are living through, okay? And what happened with politics in Israel is a race to the ball. Because the government is, for the first time ever, of one kind on, okay, Yamin and Malay, okay, right, extreme. Then the only way that if you are a minister or an MK or a member of the Knesset, the only way that you can make the headlines is that you push more to the extreme. So, a bunch of ministers from the Likud, that my opinion of them is known, but that's not the point. I mean, these guys were sort of normal up to a point, okay? But now they have been pushed essentially because otherwise you cannot survive because it's a race to the bottom. That's what it is. And it's really in politics. I don't know whether you know what Gresham law is. Gresham law in economics. Anybody knows Gresham's law? Gresham's law says that bad money pushes out good money. Okay? Gresham's law means that bad money, bad coins, pushes out good coins. Okay, so if you introduce coins that are kind of a lesser meta value, okay, then those that have the good coins will keep it, and those that have the bad ones will push it through. So exactly that happens. It's happening important. Okay, the good ones are being pushed out or turned back, but that's the only way to survive.
We see the same phenomenon in America.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly. I mean, and it happens not just with politicians, with public servants and so forth. I mean, you see that happen. Exactly. Okay, it's Gresham's law at its base. So that's kind of in the realm of politics. Now, in the social, okay, we have 2 phenomena that kind of sort of they don't go together. One is resilience. There are essentially two ways to characterize a society. One is resilience, the extent of resilience, and the second, the extent of cohesion. Okay, And what we have in Israel is an amazing display of resilience. Resilience, the definition, is the ability of a collective society, a family, a synagogue, okay, to essentially withstand shocks, crises, keep functioning, okay, and then recover. Okay, these are the stages of the phases of resilience. And the Israeli society, given all that has been happening, has proven to be incredibly resilient. It surprises us every day, every single day, because it happens with families, it happens with collectives, with cities and so forth, regions and so forth and so on. Sorry, 1 second. But here, so resilience on the one hand. On the other hand, at the same time, we are incredibly divided. So you ask yourself, how can it be? How can you have a resilient society that is so amazingly divided that we cannot agree on terminology? Okay. And here is one of the great paradoxes of this country, one that can despair or can give you a lot of hope. Okay, and Ruth, in a way, touched on that. If somebody would have asked me, okay, in October 2022, before the last elections, okay, what will happen? What will happen if? Okay, if you have the judicial reform, if you have this, the impression that everybody was that we have essentially a young generation that is hedonistic, that cares about exiting, making a big exit in high tech, okay, unattached citizens of the world, she mentioned that, okay, couldn't care less, and that's kind of the mode or the vibe in Israel.
Okay, so tribulation. So it's explicit though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that was really the consensus view, including of them themselves. See, there were TV series on kind of these excesses in high tech, kind of these parties that they throw out there and so forth and so on. That's what really is the model that everybody aspires to. Service in the army, well, yes, pilots and this and that, but that's not really what's motivating or driving people. And then they're the crazy ones, the zealots and so forth. They are there. Yes, the Haredi, who cares? As long as I don't see them, who cares? Okay, that was kind of the essentially, and it's important to have these caricatures. What happened? Not on October 7th. What happened on January 10th? Okay, 2020. That those hedonistic, kind of egotistic young people were streaming to the streets in Tel Aviv to reclaim, we use that word, reclaim their country. And say, hey, you're not going to take it away. Yes, we took it for granted. We're having the great life, okay? Up to this point. Nobody knew that sentiment existed. Nobody knew that existed to that extent. Okay? And then the movement of Achim Laneshek, that came out strong, okay, the streets and everywhere. It was mentioned before, the reclaiming of the flag. Nobody did that. Nobody decided that. It happened immediately, okay, because it was the sentiment, okay, and then October 7th. And again, I don't think that there is another country in the world ever that you have peace fights at JFK trying to get to the flight to come to fight. Okay, and it was everywhere in Athens, Kemeham, okay, that day, the following day, and they were coming in throws, and from Ben Gurion Airport going straight to the base to put on their uniforms and go to the front. Okay, thousands, not one, not 10, not 100. Tens of thousands came up.
And in Ukraine, for example, it's the opposite.
Sorry,
In Ukraine, the opposite.
that's right, of course. I mean, Russia, were playing away and so on. So, it's really stunning. Those hedonistic young people, that's what they did. Okay? And the Achim Laneshek, that movement, switched immediately into, of course, serving in the reserves, okay, and volunteering to fulfill the role that the state was not doing at that time. For 3 months, the state was not there. The ministries and so forth, in terms of providing support to the people and providing basic necessities and so forth. And it was a massive volunteering of all sorts. And what's so amazing is that the same creativity and entrepreneurship that was so obvious in high-tech was deployed in volunteer work, because you have to figure out how. And it's very, yes, you want to help. Okay, so what do? Okay, there are so many ways that you can do it. And they were deployed, and to this day, it's happening. Okay, so this is kind of, the reality we are, it's confusing in a way, because you see, I mean, on the one hand, the headlines are terrible and so forth, and we cannot watch the news anymore, and we despise the government and so forth. But at the same time, all of this is happening. Ruth said that before. She's part of the faculty of Manuel, the Manuel Institute, Manuel Foundation, right? Okay. I've been doing this for a year. Then, one of the things that happened there is that you get to know and meet hundreds of people that we want to do. These are young people, they are people that have opportunities. They have the talent, okay? And they're committed. And there is in the north, and there is in the south, and there is in the center, and there is in with this, with that, and so forth and so on.
All sectors,
all sectors, including within the Haredi, including
and Arabs.
and Arabs, of course.
Okay.
Arabs, you mentioned Arabs. On October 8th at 9, okay, the talk was that the Arab population in Israel was going to join Hamas, okay, and take opportunity in order to do a repeat, but much worse of what happened in 2021, okay, when things exploded here, okay, the opposite happened. Not that it didn't happen, the opposite happened. Okay, they helped, they were trying to join, they were, unbelievable. So this is the reality we live in. Okay, so on the one hand, as I said, the internal divisions, the fights and so forth. On the other hand, and one more thing about polls. When I said that this is an anomaly in this government, it's not only because of what they told you before. All the polls show that on all important issues, between 2/3 and 70% of the people in Israel disagree with the government. On all important issues, be it the hostages, the continuation of the war, okay, the way we finance it, whatever. Okay, you ask question, okay, the poll investigation, yes, 2/3, it goes from 66% to 72% or so forth. So there we go. And of course, when you ask about intentions to vote, they lose completely. Okay, so it's they don't have no way that this coalition can govern. Okay, yes.
I want to ask a question about all these, hedonistic young people that now are, rising up to save society, so to speak. But I understand that such a large percentage are disagreeing with the government, but we also in America read about how generally Israeli society has moved much farther to the right. And I'm curious, why do you think that same creativity and ingenuity and we got to take back our country's spirit hasn't been applied to how can we make peace
Like that from a distance is hard to watch and hard to swallow, and hearing the kind of rightward trend in Israeli society that, you know, even if Netanyahu's gone, that's not gonna like change it. So I'm just curious your take on that.
That's, yeah, very important question. You know, what they call it a trend to the right, okay? It's very important to dissect it. What does it mean? I will start from a different point. The zealots, let me call them that way. Okay, Smotrich and its followers. Okay, Ben-Gvir is a different phenomenon. Ben-Gvir is a hooligan. There's a difference between the ideology of a zealot, true fervent believer in Greater Israel and blah blah blah. Okay, that's Smotrich. Okay, Ben-Gvir is a hooligan. He's really, I mean, he's an outlaw. This guy. He was, you know, tried and so forth like 19 times. I don't remember how many. Okay, and he captures, you know, that segment of society which are have that tendency. Okay, but gave them the voice of this. Albert Hirschman has the exit voice and loyalty. Not that book. So he gave them a voice. Okay. So that's, but the zealots, they've been trying for 50 years. And they say, we win political battles and settlements and so forth. We lost the war for the hearts of the Israelis. They didn't manage to move the, you know, the support. You know that 90% of Israel have never been to the West Bank. 90% of Israelis have never been, according to the polls, okay, to the West Bank, and have no intention of going.
Doesn't mean Gilo or.
No, not Gilo, not this Jerusalem. Not this Jerusalem. Okay, right.
So most of the, ask people from Tel Aviv.
Whether they know what a front is, whether they're gonna know what it is.
What you're talking about.
I mean, you know, they don't know. I mean, they have, it's not, so they lost the hearts of the Israeli people. But nevertheless, what has happened is that what is being called right, moving to the right, is essentially fear. Fear, okay? My friends are afraid, okay? And they say, how can I be trusted, okay? What do you want them, you know, in front of your house to be Hamas, you know, next door to so. So that, yes. So the zealots have not warned us, but the fear that is much more prominent as a motive, as a driver, okay, of behavior, of political stance, and so forth. And you know, there are two conflicting forces. There is fear and there is hope. Okay, and right now, okay, what dominates is fear, and unfortunately, what we lack is somebody or some movement to articulate hope. This is what we did, okay, to counteract the fear. I mean, this is very hard these days to talk about peace. You know, the word peace here in Israel doesn't carry much currency. I mean, in terms of the political, because people say, oh, well, you know, peace that you will have to trust them, okay, and then they will be next doors and see what happens and so forth and so on. I don't think that many Israelis can be blamed for being the depth of the trauma of October 7th is actually scarred. I mean, really, it's something that I don't know how it will be managed, you know, with us. So essentially, that's the story. And on top of that, we have a prime minister that is the ultimate kind of professional in terms of taking fear and translating it. It's very easy to manipulate, you know, fear into that. But it's not a change in what they said, you know, when it comes to the basic issues that you ask people about it. It's a very different story. So we have to be very careful with those. with those extensions. So anyway, so that's kind of the two words is.
Just to follow up on Nikki's question,
Yeah.
are you suggesting that if the current political leadership were to change, that the trajectory of politics in this country will also change?
Absolutely, I have no doubt. Look, I mean, the two politicians that are now being seen as the kind of the hope, okay, are Bennett and Isaac. Okay, Isaac was the former commander-in-chief of the army. I presume you know the names, right? Gary Isaac and Naftali Bennett. Now,
Not exactly left wing.
that's right. No. There's no way, no, let me be very clear. There's not going to be, in Israel, what we call them, okay, in government kind of being the centerpiece of the government. It's not going to be anytime soon. In Israel, what we need is a government of transition to restore sanity, to bring some sort of sense of commonality, the Israeli people, and only then we will be able to sort out, okay, the purely political stance in terms of ideology.
We have one like that, but for.
Yes, a very short time, we got enough. Sorry?
So literal something, because that's what was.
That's right, no, but I mean, of course, but what I'm saying is, yes, so
Why did it fail?
the government, the Bennett, because they had 61. And the mistake that Bennett made, that he regrets that enormous to this day, right? Okay. The way he chose the people that run with him. Look, he really, as he brought him forth that by bringing these people, he will capture more of the right, okay? And essentially, he brought in Trojan horses.
They defected
They defected, that they was, and since then they have joined the government, and they are the Likud, but they are the worst kind among the Likud. So that was a huge mistake, but in any case, he had only 61. And with 61, you cannot do it. Okay, so yes, your question of who can do it. In my view, it's a combination of Bennett and Isaac. Okay, why? Because Bennett, well, of course, he's not late, but he is a liberal, okay, a true liberal. Okay? And that, at this point in time, is what counts most. And he's not going to undertake steps like an exit in Gaza or whatever. No way. Okay? So he's a rational guy. Okay. Isaac is a fantastic guy. I mean, Isaac, I know him well, and must confess that I'm close contact. But he is the sort of person that is genuine. He's a guy of values. Most people don't know what he comes from Morocco. And the family name is very deceiving. Isaac, but the family comes from Morocco. Grew up in that. At the time, he was kind of saying Paris, Texas, whatever. And he grew up from below, and he has all the right values. And so that combination, I think, is what we can expect, hope for, okay, and bring about a change, but it won't be kind of from Yemin al-Malay to smaller Malay. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like that. Okay. So that's kind of now, I have really much more to say about the economy, so forth, we are running out. So let me say just take it up. And I'm still fasting. And we say a few things about the economy. So the economy in Israel is one of these paradoxes. Okay, as many other. Okay, why is that? Because if you look at the data, nobody will guess that it is a country in war. Nobody will guess that. I mean, you look at the macro data, okay, it looks like a okay plus country. In terms of look at unemployment, it's the lowest has been, it's less than 3%. Okay, so there's no unemployment, it's a structural. You look at inflation, 3 point something percent, no problem there. You look at the balance of pay, you look at the shekel. Okay, this affects you the other way, right? The shekel is very strong, too strong. Okay, so and the shekel reflects a lot. You have a very, very open economy. Okay, exports, imports, you look at the growth, of course, has been affected. But still there is positive growth of it. It's going to be 3 point something percent.
Better because of Europe.
Oh, of course, but that's not the standard. But in any case, I mean, so you look at all that, the stock market, stock market is skyrocketing. Okay, and you say, you know, Michigan, you know, what's wrong? What do I don't understand? But that's only part of the story. Okay, but the other side of the story is that essentially the cost of the war have been postponed. Okay, we undertook debt. Okay, and had to pay for it. You know, the investors in the world are ready to buy the Israeli bonds, you know, because they pay good interest and they are considered to be solid. Okay, but nevertheless, you have to pay. Okay, so the delta, the increase in interest payments has been of something like 10 billion shekels per year, the increase. Okay, the delta because of the war. Okay, but above all, what has happened in Israel, the reason we don't feel the pain of the economic cost of the war to a large extent is because of what I call human overdraft. Human overdraft. What do I mean by that? This phenomenon that take the Bedouin, the residents. They go to the front, they are fighting in Gaza. With the other hand, they call the startup in Tel Aviv and keep the business running. Okay, their wives and 90% of the residents are men, so we're going to use gender, okay, that way. Okay, the women also selling dresses, but the vast majority of it, so allow them to do that. The women, you know, they are alone, okay, for months, okay, 3 kids, that's the standard in Israel, okay, working, because you know, in Israel, the rate of participation of women in the workforce is extremely high, okay, including both the Haredi, by the way, including, yes. So, and they're working, they're maintaining the household, they are keeping the children doing the big mess, tremendously worried because of the husband that are in Gaza. Okay, this is human overdraft. Okay, it's too long, too much to bear. So we are depleting our human resources as a society. Yeah, at some point, we have to stop. We have to recharge. Okay, we haven't yet reached that point. We're going to reach it. So that's kind of essentially what is happening with the economy. We can talk more about that. But let me just conclude this on this opening down. I mentioned before that in December it will be 7 years of this incredibly bad run. Okay. What I suggest is that we turn around the story of Joseph in Egypt. Okay. So the 7 bad years came first. And now we have to contemplate 7 good. And we can do it. And we can do it because of what I said before, that this young generation, not me, okay, not and some of my colleagues that have this thorough of head, okay, but my daughters, okay, their husbands and so forth and so on. Okay, they have committed themselves to the country to an extent that was unthinkable. I don't know whether my daughter would have come back. If the country was so normal and fun and so forth, she would have got in a position that it's very hard to say no to a position in quantum physics in Stanford. Okay. But no, I mean, they are completely committed. This is an asset that has enormous value. Okay. The awakening, the understanding that you cannot take for granted anything, you cannot take for granted democracy, not just in Israel, okay, in the US, in Europe, and so forth and so on. We grew up with the expectation that that's it. I mean, that's the normal state of affairs of the human being, is to live in a democracy. No way. You have to reclaim democracy. You were asking about Judaism, okay, before. This young generation is identifying themselves and linking themselves with the state of the country because it's a Jewish country. Not because it's like Berlin, okay, or whatever. So, yes, they are asking questions that were not asked before. Because if you're ready to die for this is what? What distinguishes this piece of land in the middle of, a bad neighbor? It's your country because it's a Jewish country. So these issues were not there before. Again, they took it for granted, this is our children go to the gun and they sing in Hebrew, this from the home. So that's what's going on. This is what they foresee, the 7 good years. Yes, we have a terrible government, the worst ever by a long shot, in that sense, Guinness Book of Records. Okay. We see pictures that are horrendous. Okay, this is the bottom. Okay, from now they're going to climb back, reclaim the country, and get ourselves into the same year.
Yeah, that's all done.